Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently ready to go here with this slightly less monstrous monstrosity, and we're delivering this very, very, very basic lander to Eve. This is so much overkill, I love it. I'll be honest, overkill is fun. I like overkill. So this is massive overkill to deliver this to Eve, right? Absolutely. 100% this is overkill. But I think it's good. We'll do it. So we have our deployable science here. I've already gone through off camera and redone the strut work here. It's not pretty, but it'll get the job done. We do need to swap out Jebediah for Jorik because we don't want to just leave Jebediah on Eve, right? So we're going to bring Jorik Kerman here. I'm not sure if Jorik realizes that he's not coming back, but obviously there's no mechanism here to return with, right? Surely he knows. Nobody technically told him. But that must be something he just knows. Has to be. So we're going to launch this thing, and it should, in theory, be absolutely fine. We're going to be a little tiny bit slow off the pad, but I think that's not a big concern. We're probably going to waste a lot of fuel when we get to Eve. There's a lot of fuel in that nuclear engine. We'll see how it goes. It's probably massive overkill. We know that we wasted a lot with our Duna trip, but we'll see. SAS is not going to be a thing. We're going to be on Kilrot, and we're using Smart ASS from here on, of course, with our current tech level. So off we go. We shouldn't have any major stability issues here. Yeah, I think we're ready. Definitely a little bit slow off the pad, but we're already up to 1.6, so that's really not too bad. How long is this going to burn beyond the SRBs? 82 seconds? Okay, I probably should have double-checked staging, but I'm pretty sure we got that good to go, right? I'm like 99% sure that this staging is fine. Okay, let's start heading over towards the horizon here. Very gently. We don't want to be too aggressive about it. And we're keeping an eye on this apoapsis height and time to apoapsis. As long as that number is increasing, the apoapsis time, that is, we're good. If that time to apoapsis number starts decreasing, we need to be a little bit less aggressive on heading over towards the horizon. Cool. We've got about 10 seconds in theory left on these SRBs, so I'm going to I'm going to stop here. We're going to hang out at this moment, and we'll just head into prograde. This is surface prograde, to be clear. Okay, we'll just stick to prograde. And we're going to get our SRB detachment here shortly. 2, 1, and 0. Okay, SRB is cleanly detached. Let's go to horizontal velocity up. And hope that we can stop this turn. This is a very aggressive turn. No doubt about that. Heading of 91 degrees is probably fine. But I would like to drop that heading. Let's pull down like this for a bit and see if that does the trick. It looks like that did. Cool. So we're keeping an eye on our apoapsis height here. And we're going to target, I think, 100 kilometers. So we've got about 8 seconds of liquid fuel left here. Cool. 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay, clean separation. I was a little concerned about that separation, but it looks good. Beautiful. Our apoapsis is definitely in space at this point. And to be honest, it's probably more efficient to just cut the throttle here and then circularize like this. So that's exactly what we're going to look to do. Something like that. Okay. We should be able to ditch our fairing at this point and save some weight. and so we shall. We'll lock to the node. Not that we're going to turn very easily while in the atmosphere here without our engine gimbaling. But actually, this is turning a little bit better than I expected it to. And yeah, this is going to be 400 meters per second. That's fine. Not a concern here. So we're going to extend some of these bad boys here in a moment. But we're just getting in position. We're not out of the atmosphere quite yet. 4 kilometers to go there. 3. 2 more kilometers to go on that. So it's going to be a little bit yet, not too major. We're definitely seeing some wiggling here, but given the length of this, I'm not shocked about that. It seems fine. We're now in space, and we will extend our antenna and our solar panel. Cool. And let's warp forward just a wee bit here. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and circularization beginning in 3, 2, 1, mark. Cool. Make sure that we're on node mode here. Excellent. And honestly, we don't really care about our flight engineer at this moment. It's not very relevant. I'm just using it for this overlay, even though that information is right here as well. I love it. Okay, about 30 seconds left in this burn. Ooh, I don't like that compression. Okay, we're not going to physics warp this engine. That's about 80 more seconds of burn, so not a big deal there. This is very compressing here, so we would need to have struts connecting here, and we don't. But that's fine. Okay, entering orbital mode, and we are officially in a decent orbit. This'll do. So we'll shut down that engine, and I don't think we're going to aim for a moon assist here. We want to head towards the sun, so we want to be burning about when this periapsis is, actually. That's basically perfect. Not quite perfect. We would really want it to be about here, I think. Then we push that guy on out like so. And then the question is, what does this look like as far as... I mean, our ascending node is going to be off, right? That's definitely going to be a thing. What is this going to look like for a rendezvous, though? If we were to toss this in... I mean, this would be a really weird time to actually do this burn, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just wondering what the timing would be. Yeah, we're definitely wrong. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to bring this in to not encapsulate it quite this much, I think. We're going to bring it in to be somewhere around here, and then we'll circularize based on that, or just go for an intercept. One or the other. The descending and ascending node would be quite a ways out. That's probably fine. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's physics warp as we turn. And let's prepare for this burn. Cool. So we've got about 15 minutes until the burn here. We're definitely wiggling our way over, but once we're done with this fuel here, which will be in this burn, we should be absolutely fine on that front. This is going to be a relatively long burn once we get this going, but in theory, we shouldn't have any major compression there, I think. We'll see. I mean, this is a nuclear engine, so the actual thrust is so much lower, right? So that should, in theory, be fine. Okay, let's get lined up again for the burn. We'll physics warp our way on over. Cool. We've got about 30 seconds until our burn here. 20. 10. Coming out of physics warp. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. And off we go. We can see that gimbal being a little awkward. No doubt about that. I really want to physics warp this burn. But I think that we really do need to wait until this is done. I really don't like the way that this compresses together. So a strut from here to here, and the same for all of these tanks, would have been the way to go there to prevent that. But, you know, hindsight is 20/20, so what are you going to do? This is such a ridiculous looking lander. Such a tiny little thing. But we managed to get it into orbit, and we've got like 6,000 Delta V in this tank, which is way more than we need. In theory, this little lander could go a lot of places. On 6,000 DV, that's a lot of DV. Okay. So we've got about 500 meters per second to go here. We're going to be done with our initial booster stage in 3, 2, 1, mark. And now we should be fully capable of physics warp. Yeah, this is not compressing at all. I love it. So we're very stable from here, and we'll physics warp our way through the remainder of this burn, but it is going to be a pretty long burn. We're still at a 0.27 thrust to weight, but that is almost 3 times what it was for the Duno trip, so that's pretty good. I'm relatively pleased with that. Oh, this was 6,000 and then another 4,200 in here. Oh, okay. These side tanks are probably unnecessary. This thing is capable of going basically anywhere and landing on basically any body, except that it doesn't actually have a landing engine, right? So it's reliant on landing somewhere with some form of atmosphere. We could attach an engine to it. A relatively light engine. That is a decent possibility. Okay, we'll call this good enough. Yeah, that'll do. And next at the ascending node, this is going to be a pretty hefty warp, but I'm not shocked about that. At this ascending node, we're going to put in a burn going this direction. There we go, matching planes. And from there, we would just look to burn in at the periapsis and either circularize or go for an encounter if the timing is good. So that'll be fine. We will line up for that node, which this thing does turn reasonably well. It's not amazing by any means, but it turns reasonably well. Okay, and let's warp on through. We're just below the threshold of when I would usually cut out the time warp, but I'm going to do it anyway. We'll be back right near the end of this warp. See you guys in a moment. Okay, and here we are at the end of the time warp. We're about a minute from the burn here, and we did receive quite a lot of science coming through from our surface deployed observations, which is unsurprising. We're going to warp forward a little bit further, 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. Now this is going to be another 2-minute burn, so we're going to physics warp our way through this so that it's a wee bit shorter here. But this will match our planes very nicely. In theory. Presumably it will. Yeah, it definitely will. So this will be fine. We are, of course, going to burn at the periapsis next and circularize. How far away is that? 85 days? That's not too bad of a warp. That should be fine. Okay, let's come out of the physics warp here as we finish this burn. 10 meters per second to go. And there we go. 0.0 meters per second, putting us at 0.0 degrees. Perfect. So at the periapsis, let's see what we've got here. That's like 80 days away. Sure, that's fine. This timing is not great, so we're going to circularize, and we'll just look for a better time to bring this in. Definitely not an efficient way to transfer, but it is a guaranteed way to transfer, so we'll do it this way. We'll line up for that node and begin our warp as soon as we're ready here. This is only going to be about half the duration, so that looks good. Excellent. So we'll warp on through this, no problem whatsoever, and then we'll just look for an intercept here. Not like that intercept is going to be particularly difficult. This should be absolutely fine. Cool. About 10 days to go, and we're seeing additional science flowing in from Ike, and only Ike currently. We did get a message that there wasn't a connection on Duna. It's possible that that would happen, I suppose, but they should get a connection soon. 40 seconds to go here. 30, 20, 10, and we'll start this up in, well, right now. Fantastic. It doesn't really matter that much, like, down to the second level when we do this burn, when our orbit is this long of a period. We just want to circularize, right? So we'll physics warp our way on through this, and we can see we have so much fuel left. Like, we still have almost 10,000 Delta V here. This thing is so much overkill, but it can land on basically anything. If we were to put in some strap-on fuel tanks up here, potentially, some small ones, and then a landing engine here, this thing would be capable of landing on literally any body in the system, and we have so much excess Delta V here that should be absolutely fine. If we need to put on another pair of SRBs to lift it, we could, but I doubt we'd even need that, to be honest. So it should be completely fine. We are circularizing our orbit here. About 10 more seconds left in that burn. Let's come out of physics warp. And that'll do. Cool. So from here, we are, of course, going to look for an encounter. That's awkwardly timed. Are we going to have to wait for an orbit? It looks like we are. Sure. This is what you get for not properly timing your windows. Right up over here. That's actually pretty decent. What do we got? Oh, that's a really nice encounter. That is a really nice encounter. A little bit inclined, but that should be okay. We're to bring this guy right on down, and are we going to immediately aerobrake? I don't think so. I think that we're going to bring this down to like 100 kilometers here, and then we'll dip into the atmosphere after we circularize that. We want to be able to make sure that we can try, at least, to hit land, right? We need to hit land. Otherwise, this whole thing is a waste. So let's not go directly into the atmosphere completely uncontrolled. Let's bring it in like this and see what that's going to look like. Okay, so that's going to be 323.8 meters per second. It's not like we have any shortage of Delta V for this. Cool. And that's going to be in a year. Okay, let's get that warp going, like a year and a half almost. Let's get that going, and good thing Jorik has a very, very solid connection for his Ketflix here, because he needs a lot of entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, time warps are not very entertaining. So we are going to cut this out again. See you guys in a moment. So here we are much, much closer to Eve. And the real question is, where exactly is it? We're not in the Eve sphere of influence yet. Well, of course we're not. We're not actually rendezvousing. We're preparing for the rendezvous. This is going to be in 149 days. I'm dumb. Okay, so we're going to warp on forward here. 40 seconds. 30, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and mark. I got ahead of myself a bit there. For some reason, I was thinking we had already done this burn, but no, we definitely had not. I guess that's what I get for tabbing out and reading other things during the during the time warp there. Well, we've got about 40 seconds left in this burn. Now about 30, 20, and we do want to be relatively accurate with this burn. So we're going to come out of the time warp here. 7, and actually let's just keep an eye on it here. This is the important thing. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the maneuver, and we're just going to bring this guy right on down to about that 100-kilometer mark. Hopefully we don't overshoot. This'll do. Okay, so let's do a circularization here. There we go. That's looking good. That's going to be a pretty hefty burn, but I mean, this is Eve. That's to be expected. Are we moving retrograde to the surface? Well, actually, with Eve, that doesn't matter. There's so much atmosphere that it's completely and totally irrelevant. So let's do something kind of like this, making sure that both of those are above the atmosphere. That'll do. We're a little bit inclined, but I'm not too concerned about that. Let's head on over to our node. There we go. Looking good there. And let's warp. This is below that 200-day threshold, so it should be relatively fine here. That is about the amount of time that I feel is rather difficult to fill. So we are going to be entering the sphere of influence of Eve in about 70 days. Sure. That's all looking fine, and we have gotten quite a lot of additional science. All of this so far is from Ike. Has Duna not reconnected? Hello, Eve. Duna may not have reconnected. We'll take a look at that. Probably after this burn. We should do that. I want to make sure Duna is actually functioning. So we're going to warp forward, not quite that far. Overshot it a little bit, but it should be fine. That's only a 5-second overshoot. So we'll burn here, and we're already in orbit. Looks good. We're, of course, physics warping this burn, but it's going to be like a 6-minute burn. So that's a relatively hefty one. No doubt about that. Currently over the Explodium Sea, but it's hard to predict what biome we're going to be landing on when we're landing entirely via aerobraking. That's going to be exciting for sure. We're currently connected directly... Okay, that's interesting. We're directly connected to Kerbin. This comsat is currently, I think, occluded from us? No, that should actually be visible. Interesting. I'm not sure why we're not connected to the comsat, but whatever. We are connected, that's what matters. So we are 600 meters per second away from entering our final orbit here. And we're going to have to verify that this orbit is still safe, right? Because this is such a long burn time that it might be a little wacky. But yeah, we have so much extra fuel here. I'm deeply unsurprised by that. This does indicate that with a little bit of work, this could become a very, very basic lander that can land literally on anything. So that is kind of neat. 200 meters per second to go here. And I'm watching our periapsis here, which is actually rising currently. So that should be reasonably okay. Coming out of the physics warp here. Okay, we see our periapsis dropping. We're going to call this good for now, but our periapsis is within the atmosphere. So we're going to need to make a slight alteration here, and that's fine. I'm just going to recircularize at about 130. It's a little higher than I would really like, but it should be relatively fine. It doesn't actually matter. We can always lower that if we choose to, but I don't think it's necessary. So let's get into position here, and we are going to just check on our atmosphere height here. It should absolutely be fine. I'd like to go check on Duna as well, and I think we'll do that immediately after this burn so that I don't forget. So let's go do that, and after that, we'll cut the episode, and then next episode, we'll do the actual landing. It's the way that this is going to have to end up flowing, I think. I was hoping to get the actual landing this episode, but with that Duna check in there, we'll have to see that. I want to know what's going on with that. Do we have to reactivate it? We shouldn't. Okay, 2, 1, and how's that? Yeah, that'll do. So let's hop back to the Space Center, actually to the tracking station, and skip a loading scene there. And we need to hop over to Duna and take a look at what's going on here. We haven't gotten a connection from Duna in a while. So what do we got going on at the combined Duna lander? That's been there for quite a while. It should have a connection, I would think. We could put additional comsats up. It is theoretically possible that it doesn't have one, but it functionally has 3 relay satellites, right? It's got the one on Ike, which I think it can still use without a controller. It's got the relay station that is in equatorial and the relay station in polar orbit. It should be relatively well connected. And it is indeed connected right now. So that looks good. What do we have going on down over this way then? This is definitely connected. It has one experiment connected. Okay, we're done with the weather analyzer. That's fully completed, but it hasn't transmitted. Yeah, the seismometer, of course, is going to be that case. The ionographer is not going to run because there's an atmosphere. So we have not transmitted any of this data. Why? That's very interesting. Literally none of it has been transmitted. There's a connection here. We have a 0.54 comm signal. Do we have to, like, redeploy it? I don't know. Regardless, we know that we have basically all of the science we can here. We should transmit that data. I didn't necessarily want to do all this. This was maybe a mistake. Okay, that's exciting stuff. Can we stop that? Apparently it's just doing all of these. I guess we'll transmit that data, but we're going to run out of electric charge. I intended to transmit this data. Okay. I didn't intend to transmit all of this, but I guess that's fine. We don't have enough electric charge right now. We're going to hop back to the Space Center. We have the data from our deployed science. It just hasn't transmitted. That's very interesting. I would have expected that we didn't have all of the data yet. But regardless, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to probably spend all of this science that we've gotten. This should be a rather large amount of science at this point. And we are also going to finish up our Eve landing. Yeah, we've got 2,000 here. We can actually spend that kind of now. We can do this guy, and this guy for the time being. And then we'll get more over time. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, James, Shadowwolf, and Lohan80, Rogue Corvid, Kentogan, Andy Magar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.